You had him on the roost,
Had him,
and
and
he flies off the other direction. So
yep,
what happens after that?
I was beat at that point. So again, it went a full week of me, playing cat and mouse with this bird, and he would gobble really good on the limb, and then he would gobble pretty sporadically on the ground. But I knew he didn't have hens. There was, I mean, there was an occasion that a hen, might have been around, but I never saw one, never heard one. Um, so at this point, I know he's just pretty cagey. Like he's not a run down your gun barrel kind of turkey. Um, I had a feeling he was pretty old, but I was questioning that because of his lack of hens. I mean, this was not super deep into the season. This was, probably first or second week of April. So thought, man, if he's a old dominant bird, he should still be around hens at this point pretty regularly. So the final day that I ended up killing him on, I approached from a complete like different direction. I don't know if that had anything to do with it other than I felt like I could be a little bit quieter. But we'd had a rain the day before, so
Oh yeah, that's perfect.
it was pretty ideal for me to get where I needed to be quietly. And I got above him. I was where he was at. He was right as a finger rolls off down into a holler, and I got directly above him. As a matter of fact, I was a little worried that I was going to be like eye level with him when it got daylight,
Yeah.
which is could be good, could be bad. There was enough foliage that it was you know
Oh yeah, because we're later in the season now.
right, which
Okay.
allows you a little room for error.
Yep.
And sure enough, it started getting daylight, and my first instinct was, oh, this is great. Here in a few minutes, I'm gonna give him a few tree yelps and blah blah. And then I thought, you idiot, you've done the same thing
Yeah.
every day. Has it worked yet?
Right.
Like, let's see what he does. Like, so sure enough, I sat there all the way till he flew down. I heard, couldn't see him on the limb. I kept thinking I could, but I ended up seeing him, pitch across a little opening. I could see he was like 80 from me. When he hit the ground, I had to make a decision. I was like, do I immediately start yelping to this turkey or do
Right.
I just see what he does? So I thought for a minute when he hit the ground that I could hear him walking, and I was like, well, he's coming up. He's coming up, right? So I head down on the gun. I'm waiting, and then he gobbles, and I can tell he's not necessarily went down, but he's kind of went around this finger.
Yep.
So now I got to make a decision. And I said, you know what? You know, I'm going to be very quiet, and try to call, as least amount as possible. Because again, by nature, I'm pretty aggressive, but I've been aggressive with this turkey almost half a dozen times now, and it hadn't, I've walked out of there, empty shoulder every time. So
Right.
I finally give this turkey a couple of small yelps, and he didn't answer me. I was like, well, that's not good, you know. So kept myself somewhat positive, but I'm like, this is going to be the last time that I fool with this thing. I'm not wasting my entire year, hunting this one turkey. And then I didn't yelp to him again. I said, I'm gonna see what he does. And I'm just gonna just listen. Because again, he didn't gobble enough on the ground any morning for me to be like, hey, this is what he does. This is,
Right.
where he likes to go.
Yep.
Because every time I would try to do something, I think me moving and calling was kind of manipulating what he really wanted to do.
Yep.
So after that really small series of yelps, I just sat and probably 10 minutes go by. And somehow this turkey came full 360 all the way around me. I never heard him. He comes up on my right and I hear him drumming. And I was like, wow. I don't know if he liked to just circle this little finger knob. I don't know what he was doing because there was a lot of scratching up there that I started noticing after I killed the turkey. I didn't see it in the dark. But he walked up to like 30, and I shot him. And I'd only yelped to him the one time. He had made a full 360 around me before he stepped up on top. But when I stood up, and went to the turkey, that whole little ridge top right there, it was obvious that was just home.
Yeah.
He was living there. I won't say all day, but the better part of the day, he was just living there. It was, it was big oaks. It was pretty shady. By that time, it's already hot, that time of year. He had a creek bottom below him that he could drop down if he needed to get
Yep.
water or something. He was just living there.
Yeah.
And he knew, how to survive right there.
Yeah.
And every time that I was like crossing that holler or coming up, again, I don't know how much he paid attention to what was going on in the dark. Some of them you can just walk right up underneath. I don't think he was one of those. He knew where he was at was safe. He had a, He had a thing that he would do if he was unpressured, but if he got messed with, I think he would leave.
Yeah.
And every day that I was trying to do this and do that, I was just interrupting what he wanted to do. For whatever reason, he was not I'm going to go to a hen type turkey.
Yep.
I'm going to stand here. And he ended up being, I don't think he was a super old turkey. He had, like 1.8 spurs, pretty decent beard, but he was a very like set in his ways. I'm going to do this. And, no matter what you try to do, it wasn't going to manipulate where he was at or what he wanted to do.
That's so good. If you're shifting around in the tree, standing up every 20 minutes, or cutting hunts short because you're uncomfortable, your saddle is costing you opportunities. That's why many hunters choose Buzzard Roost saddles. They're 100% USA made and built for serious time in the tree. The new Reloaded saddle features a proprietary design that distributes weight evenly and reduces pressure points, making short sits comfortable and all-day rut hunts realistic. Comfort equals patience. Patience is what kills mature bucks. If you want to try one in person, come by our store, Revive Outdoors in Trussville, Alabama. We've got a full tree demo set up so you can clip in and you can feel the difference before you buy. Get comfortable, stay longer, hunt smarter. Buzzard Roost saddles. If you're missing turkeys or barely putting pellets in the kill zone, it's probably not your aim. It's your choke and shell combo. Not all choke tubes perform the same, and not every shot shell pairs well with your specific shotgun. The wrong combo can absolutely wreck your pattern past 30 yards. That's why I run TrueLock choke tubes. They're a multi-generational, family-owned company that specializes in choke design. In fact, several factory stock chokes are made by TrueLock as the manufacturer's choice. Every single spring, I see those Facebook posts asking what choke and what shell combo to run, and the answers are absolutely all over the place. If you want a data-driven, range day proven setup built for your specific gun, call TrueLock. Their number is 1-800-293-9402. Tell them the specific shotgun you have, and they'll match you with the right choke and shot shell combo. Pattern it once, hunt with confidence all season. I never expected a peaceful hunt to turn tense. One morning in the woods, I ran into a convicted and violent felon that was poaching on our property. Just like that, a calm day completely shifted. Thankfully, I do carry every day, and thankfully I did not have to defend my life. I was able to verbally de-escalate the situation, but here's really what hit me after. Even when you are doing everything legally and you are in the right, you can still face legal consequences if something goes wrong. Up until that moment, I really had never thought about any kind of legal protection for lawful self-defense. But now I made a point to go into USA Go and get USA Go Pro Shield self-defense legal protection. If you are a responsible gun owner, you need to think beyond the gear and the training. Learn more at usago.org and use code REVIVE to save 10% off and get your free welcome gifts. Be prepared legally and responsibly. What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Revive Outdoors podcast. In today's episode, you are going to want to listen to this from start to finish. It is the first time this man has ever been on a podcast, and I am grateful to be the one that's interviewing him. We have Mr. Walt Higginbotham with us, and we're going to talk about the unkillable turkey. Is there such a thing? How do you kill the unkillable turkey? And just all the details that go into turkey hunting. Hear a little bit of Walt's background, but we're talking a man that's killed over 100 turkeys in Alabama, has limited out every year since he was a teenager, except for 1 year. He did tell me, I was like, oh, but yeah, just an incredible turkey hunter. I have vicariously kind of just by association, learned from him through his cousin who taught me initially how to turkey hunt, and just really excited to be on here with Walt today and let y'all hear from him. And so, Walt, welcome to the show.
Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, man, it's going to be a great time. I don't know if I've been this excited about being on a podcast with someone, and I am not overhyping Walt. He is
I'll be more than happy to disappoint you.
Absolute turkey killer. So, Walt, why don't you just give us a little bit of background over all of your hunting experience and then specific turkey experience?
Man, as far as I can remember back, I was chasing critters with a pellet gun when I was, little bitty kid. But, I grew up around a hunting family. We all did it in some capacity. My dad, he was always kind of a dog guy, so he liked coon hunting, squirrel hunting, stuff like that, and I enjoyed that. And my uncle and cousins, they were big deer hunters, and I was kind of the younger of the family, so I was kind of the bringing up the tail as far as who got to get started in it. But nobody was really turkey hunters in my family. Um, my dad would go occasionally, but there was something about that that just that was what I wanted to do. I mean, I've been blessed, like I said, to have killed some deer, killed a lot of small game stuff like that. But turkeys was my um, just fascination when it came to hunting. That 45 days out of the year was what I looked forward to.
That's cool. So when did you start turkey hunting? Was it 15? Is that what you told me?
I think I killed my first one at 15. I went, obviously before you can drive, you're pretty limited as to, somebody take you somewhere, unless you live on a piece of property, which, I mean, there was some woods and stuff behind where I lived, but there were no turkeys where I lived. So I would go occasionally before that, but uh, yeah, 15 was probably what I would say I could really get out there by myself, and try to figure it out. And that was the biggest thing in the younger years was not having a lot of experienced people around me doing it. There was a lot of mess ups. I thought it was, go out in the woods with a box call and yelp up a turkey and shoot him. That was my, what it looks like on TV. That
Yeah,
was
that's right.
that's what everybody associates turkey hunting with, and that was not the case.
Yeah. So, uh, talk through, today's topic's going to be, just really diving into is a bird unkillable? What is your answer? Just straightforward, yes or no? Yes or no answer. Is there such thing as an unkillable turkey?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, I am in agreement with this, but we're going to dive deep into it. And so let's just first talk through. Okay, so your hunting achievements thus far is mind blowing. So since 15, so that year that you were 15, all the way up until now, almost 40, you have tagged out, limited out in Alabama every year.
Every year except one, and that one year was actually a year that I got promoted at the job I'm at, and I only got to hunt about maybe 5 or 6 times that year, and I killed 3.
Man, should have quit.
Yeah.
You're like, you know what? This job isn't for me.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
gotta,
it I was out of town, at a corporate event for, like, 2 weeks of it, and then it was just always something, and it was literally the most miserable, like, 2 months of my life, like, because every morning driving to work, the sun's coming up, and I'm like, "They're gobbling. I know they're
yep.
gobbling, and I'm not there."
Oh, that's gonna be so tough. So how old were you then? So you'd been
Uh,
turkey hunting a
oh,
while at that
yeah, I
point?
was I was probably 24, 25 at that time.
Man,
Yeah,
yeah. So
so it
you
was
had about 10 years in and
oh, yeah,
you're just eat up with it
for
and
sure,
you're
and
having to
and
go work.
and I guarantee you everybody at work was sick of hearing me talk about
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
it. Yeah, we know, Walt, we know you'd rather be there.
Yeah, yeah. So after all these years of turkey hunting, what would you say, a lot of times, so me and you collectively, like you've shared with me that you pretty much like this time of year, like work knows now, like this is where Walt's going to be at this time, and you're hunting until you tag out, and then probably after helping other people.
Sure.
And so, for guys like us, I literally will revolve. My whole schedule revolves around my family, of course, my wife and my kids, but then hunting. This
Right.
time of year. Um, for the people who are out there who can't do that, that's what we really try to tailor the podcast to is like those weekend warriors. Maybe they just get to go on Saturday morning.
Mhm.
And so, turkey season will come in on Wednesday and then, they're going to be hunting that first Saturday. So everything that we try to talk about is like the minimal amount of time that you have to maximize your efforts to
Sure.
try to tag out. And so when it comes to, first of all, just looking for what you would say prime habitat, we were talking on the phone earlier and I have this property that deer season I've sent somebody over to. I've witnessed this myself. There'll be anywhere from one gobbler to 4 or 5 gobblers and probably 50 hens. But that's in the fall and in the winter. And then the spring, I have went out there 20 times myself.
and
I've
not
sent
and not
guys
and
out
not hurt a
there
turkey.
10 times, not heard a turkey, not seen scratching. I think I've called up one lawn hen that she was yelping up a storm trying to find something to, to
Right.
get bred. So tell us about like what you would consider as prime habitat for the spring versus the wintertime.
Well, and going back to our conversation earlier, people shouldn't get discouraged if they have property that they don't see turkeys on in the winter. Um, I've grown up around properties that it was just extremely rare that you saw a track, you saw a turkey of any kind, in the fall and winter, and then come spring, they were great. There was lots of birds, lots of gobbling. Um, again, a turkey's going to utilize what they have available to them, but if you've got big hardwoods, um, that's great wintering habitat. Great, they're gonna have everything they need as far as scratching for bugs and all that kind of stuff. Obviously nowadays with deer feeders and corn and stuff like that, I think it's changed a lot of turkeys' habits in the fall and winter. But for the most part, they're gonna prefer big open hardwoods in the winter. Come spring, and it gets a little dicey because if they've got pasture land or fields that are available to them, or even fresh or cutovers, 1 to 2 year cutovers are, fantastic turkey habitat year 1 and 2, maybe even into 3, just depending on how the regrowth is. It gets to a point where I think it's too thick for them to really utilize it. But um, you know, in Alabama, we're pretty blessed to have a pretty diverse, you know, amount of stuff to hunt. If you're a field hunter and you like to set up on edges or that kind of thing, that's a great place in the spring. But I would say ideally for me, um, if I can early season, they've backed our season up a little bit here, but that March to first week of April timeframe, if I can be close to some big hardwoods, but on like maybe some pine edges or cut over edges or that kind of thing, I think you're catching a lot of that kind of transition of, they're moving, they're still using the hardwoods, especially, while they're in that kind of feeding mode still. Or when gobblers are still together, you see a lot of grouped up gobblers early season. Seems like the hardwoods are still really, really, productive then. As you get later in the season, trying to find more open areas or areas that, in my case, a lot of the areas that I hunt, that ends up being, logging roads, things like that. Turkeys use anything that's available to them, but, you know, it definitely changes the later you get in the season.
Yeah, something that Dave Owen shared with us recently is he's trying to find like three or more different habitats, which is kind of same thing with really any animal. I really key on that for deer. If I can find habitat diversity
Right.
coming together all in one area, but a lot of times those, not super thick pine areas,
Mhm.
but kind of spaced out, more mature pines with some underbrush and then kind of like hunting club areas with these small food plots or even maybe a little bit bigger food plots that are kind of mixed in between. I typically will find them in those areas in the spring. Of course, there's a lot of fields, big
Sure.
fields that you'll find them in as well. But yeah, like the big woods, it's really I can't honestly think of a place that I would say is a big hardwoods area that I've ever really had a ton of success in, unless it's come into where it's meeting other types of habitat. And so, what would you say to that? Have you found turkeys? I mean, I'm sure you found them pretty much anywhere and everywhere at this point. But if you had to go, say you got a 10,000 acre hunting club, or you got 10,000 acres of public land, where are you going to be starting your search for turkeys versus, versus maybe previous intel that you have? Like if you're going into somewhere brand new, what are you going to be looking for?
Well, first and foremost, if it's already during season, I'm gonna get somewhere where I can hear good. I'm gonna be high on whether it's a pine ridge, a hardwood ridge. I'm gonna be somewhere I can listen. Um, and for me, and maybe it's just the method that I prefer to hunt. I want to, I want to find a bird that's somewhat aggressive and wants to gobble. A lot of times that's probably not the best way to kill a turkey. A lot of times, finding lots of tracks and again, I don't knock anybody for how they want to hunt them. We all have our own methods or preferred methods. I'm not a sit on a field or sit on a road or sit on a. I'm just not. I can't. I'm, I sit enough during deer season that I'm not sitting anymore. I'm going to move and try to find a bird that wants to, at least give me an opportunity to, call to him, hear him gobble, whatever. Um, but as far as a new piece of property, I'm going to try to take that property and I'm going to look and think, at properties that I've had in the past. Where did turkeys like? Is there a big creek on the property? Turkeys are notorious for wanting to roost over a creek. Um, if not, then like you said, a good edge. Where some a hard pine edge. Where maybe it was a cut over 20 years ago and they replanted it, and you've got a most of the time there's going to be a logging road like adjacent to that hardwood pine edge. Great place to find scratching. I don't know. I don't know what it is about a road, but turkeys love to scratch in a road. You know, you'll find scratching on hardwood hillsides and stuff like that. But um, man, if I can find old, whether it's pine straw or leaf litter, roads are great places to look for scratching. Um, but I'm gonna probably try to start on the highest spot that I can on a new piece of property. Just put my ears on as much of it as I can, whether it's 10 acres or 10,000 acres. I want to hear as much of it as I can until the foliage won't let me do that.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And then, say you going up, you've listened to these spots, let's just say you got that first hour of daylight to
Mhm.
listen. Is going it's obviously your best window to listen. And how long are you going to stay at a spot on a high ridge before you move to another spot? And then, are you doing any calling? Are you only listening until it's time to hunt them? What's your strategy from that point?
I mean, if I had my ruthers, I'm not gonna yelp to that turkey until I feel like I'm in a position to kill him. If he's vocal enough that I can move and try to get, somewhat now, with all the different apps that you can look at topography and, you've got Onyx, Hunt Stand, all these different things. You can look at, you know, ridge systems pretty good. You can see how things, should look. Obviously, sometimes there's, a surprise of how the woods look when you get in there, but I want to put myself in a position that I feel like I've given him pretty easy access to get to me. And if I can, if he's flown down and I can tell he's moving in a direction, obviously you want to try to put yourself, you don't want to be calling it tail feathers if you can help it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've spun, turkeys around, before, but most of the time, if he's got it in his mind, he wants to go somewhere, he's going there, whether you, whether you yelp 2 times or 200 times at him, he's going there.
Yeah.
Um,
Man, that's so true. I yeah, yelping at tail feathers. Yeah, I think I've done that a fair share in my hunting journey of just not knowing, and two, a lot of people who might be watching this that are new, you have to really pay attention, which is why I love to find a gobbler like you just talked about that's more fired up. He's going to gobble more because then you can start to identify: is he gobbling away from me? Is he gobbling towards
sure.
me? Is he project which way is that voice projecting? And then, obviously where he's at every time he gobbles. Is he moving towards me? Is he moving away? Is he, moving side to side? And when you get that turkey that's fired up, you know, what is your immediate strategy when you go from, okay, he's fired up, he's 3 ridges over, and sometimes on these hunting clubs or sometimes, on this public land, 3 ridges over for you
Can
could
be a
be a
long way.
long ways.
Sure.
For him, straight as an arrow, maybe not. So when you have that distance that you've got to make ground on, what is going to be are you going to try to go back to the main ridge, follow out that finger? Are you going to just dive straight down into that bottom? What?
Ideally, I want to be on the same ridge with him or side hill with him, especially early season. If he can look across that holler and he don't hear or see another turkey over there, I'm not saying he won't cross it, but he's going to think really hard about it. Um, the main thing with a turkey is he's he's going to trust his eyes most of the time over his ears. Um, But again, if you give him a bunch of ground to look at, he's gonna look at it. And if he can pick anything out that he don't like, or he's heard, you yelping down there for 20 minutes trying to convince him to come over there, and he's yet to see, I don't hunt with a decoy, but now what is it? The first 10 days, I don't think you can
Yeah,
anyway.
that's
So
right.
um, that early season time frame where there's not a lot of foliage and the woods are still open, you really got to try to position yourself where he can't see you till he's almost killable or is killable in some cases. Whether you keep a crest, between you, or you keep a bend in the road. I like that. That's probably one of my preferred things. If you're hunting an old logging road or a fire break or something, if you can position yourself where he's got to walk around a bend, it's great. It's like deer hunting. Everybody wants to see. Everybody loves to see a long way, but sometimes seeing a long way, that's all you're going to do is see something. It's not going to put it in range for you to be able to, get a shot at a turkey or a deer.
Yeah, that is so true, and that's exactly what, if you watch any of Dave Owens' videos, what he talked about with us is he's trying to put some type of either topographical feature, a road, anything that he can between him and that turkey until it's in kill range, until it's in range to be able to take. And that's something that, I've learned the hard way. And, I'll never forget one of the first times I was turkey hunting is this guy's like, hey, they're always on this logging road over this next hill. So I'm thinking like over the hump, they'll be like pop up and shoot.
Right.
No, that was like 200 yards to the next, maybe 300 yards to the next
that's one
hump.
reason why they're there too. Is
Yeah,
if they can strut in that road and know that they can be seen for hundreds of yards, why move?
Yeah, and they can see anything coming, So it's one of those things. So let's talk about, specific to the unkillable turkey topic. And so you've got, we're going into the season, and for me, anywhere that I hunt in Alabama this time of year, now they backed up the season, they're henned up. They got hens all over them. Sometimes, it just depends on the area. I might have them already kind of breaking off hens and starting to roam a little bit more. The bachelor groups or whatever, they'll start breaking up a little bit. But let's talk about henned up turkeys and, how a lot of people will think, they're unkillable. I can't pull them off the hens. What's going to be your strategy for that when you find a turkey that's henned up? And it might be, the turkey you're going after or the only one you hear that morning or see that morning, and you want to kill before the end of the day.
Right. And typically, I would say a henned up gobbler. You hear a lot of theories. Oh, you wait till 9 o'clock and he'll be away from them hens. Maybe, but a lot of times they're still going to be with hens at 2 o'clock. It depends on how many hens he's got and what stage those hens are at. Um, I would say my biggest strategy would be to maybe have, if I have the opportunity to have some intel on which direction those turkeys like to move, and try to be at least somewhat in between, where they're roosted and where they're going, um, and try to play off of, well, they're already, moving down this ridge system or down this road system or whatever. If I don't have that intel and I have no idea, I'm going to kind of take their temperature at daylight. As turkeys start to fly down, I don't want to say it's common, but sometimes you can get some hens interested and they're just going to drag him right in there to you. But I've also seen it probably just as many, if not more times, those hens are unfamiliar with your yelp. I'm a firm believer that turkeys know each other's voice.
Yep.
Whether it's hens, or a gobbler. I mean, we may not be able to distinguish a certain gobbler; they can themselves. And I think if you're a strange hen, sometimes a group of hens will purposely go the other way. Either they don't want confrontation or whatever the case is. And you got to kind of recognize that pretty quick because you will fight yourself all day long yelp into this group of turkeys, and no matter where you're at or what you're doing, they're going to go the other way.
Yep.
So that's when just some woodsmanship is going to come into play and trying to figure out, how can I get in front of this group of turkeys?
Yeah. Yeah. Man, talking about, so, I believe, you got two types of boss hens. You got the confrontational, they're going to cut you. They're going to come up mad as a hornet. And then you got the boss hens that will do everything to lead the gobbler away from you.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
and we hate those.
I hate those hens. Hate them. And I had never experienced that before, mainly because some of my first initial places I turkey hunted, I would go and ask a million people for permission anywhere I saw birds in a field until I got yeses.
Right.
And so they were usually, I'd see 3 or 4 toms strutting and, a good decent amount of hens, but usually I had the advantage there because there was a lot of toms. There's a lot of gobblers to go after. My odds of success were higher.
Yeah, the one that's been kicked out of that group he's in trouble,
Yeah, he's my man.
and I
Yeah.
have no problem sitting down on him either.
Yeah, and so, initially, that's what my experience was, I was always getting these kicked around toms
Mhm.
that, they're just lonely at 7 a.m. already,
Oh, yeah,
they're off the roost and they're already.
no action for them in the morning.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And then as I started to change up spots and want more challenges, it's like, man, I've killed 7 turkeys off these 3 properties. Like, I know what they're going to do, I know where they're going to go. It just kind of became boring.
Sure.
And it's like, okay, I want something more challenging. And then go to a new property. And that was the first time I'd experienced that boss hen. Anywhere I went that I yelped, she just went the opposite direction.
It's actually pretty common.
Yeah, and so what do you're talking about cutting them off or getting ahead of them.
Mhm.
Your strategy, talk about it from a movement standpoint. How are you staying undercover, to not let them see you move? And then what is your calling strategy at that point?
Well, if it's become apparent that, if I'm fairly aggressively yelping, this hen's gonna go the other way, I'm gonna have to really, check myself and calm my calling down. If we're gonna go a different route, I'm gonna try to use ridges. Best, I mean, that's the best form of cover is put actual dirt between you and turkeys because even I feel like sometimes even if you've got some foliage cover, our steps don't sound like anything in the woods. I think a turkey can sometimes recognize that that's maybe not a human, but that don't sound right moving through the leaves over there. Um, so I'm gonna try to drop off the backside of a ridge, go around, and it all depends too on the property. How much land do I have to roam? You know what I mean? Sometimes it is what it is. You're not going to be able to get in front of them because of a property line or because of a river. A lot of the places I hunt, there's water nearby. It all depends on how I see the land and what I think that turkey's probably going to do. But at some point, that that turkey, if he's living on you most of the time, at some point he will probably be vulnerable to a call. At some point, he's not going to spend his entire day with one hen.
Yep.
Um, but unfortunately, for a lot of us, I work in the afternoons. I couldn't tell you what many turkeys do in the afternoons. I mean, I have obviously killed turkeys in that time frame. I see a substantial drop in gobbling activity in the afternoons, at least here in Alabama. I've seen it in other places where they tend to gobble pretty good in the evenings. But even roosting turkeys in Alabama, everybody asks me, do you go roost turkeys? And when I can, but it's not, that's really not to me priority. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously I want to start as close as I can. And we talked on the phone earlier, I try to listen for, anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks out from season on any place that I have to hunt to try to at least know about where some birds are going to be trying to, live. That they move so much. It sometimes that latter part of that 2 or 3 weeks out, you've done homework that's going to hurt you more than help you sometimes. But you want it to be here so soon that I'm going to start going as quick as I feel like turkeys are gobbling.
Yeah. Yeah. So, something that I think has surprised a lot of people that are hunting with me is what I'm willing to do to get in front of the turkeys, to get around to make the shot. And so take me through like some actual practical applications of what you do. Like for me, I'll get back in the truck and I'll drive around 4 or 5 miles of road to be able to come and access that property from the other side to get in with the wind in my face because that means the noise is projecting. If it's a really quiet day or, the leaves are really
Wind makes
dry,
a huge
I'm trying
difference.
to push the wind, my noise away from them in addition to having the hillside, at my favor, or I'm willing to get wet. And, it's
Oh,
like,
I've
to what level, do people need to realize that they're going to have to go to make these things achievable?
you can make turkey hunting the laziest man sport, or you can make it the absolute hardest sport I believe there is. If you're willing to climb mountains and cross creeks and all that, I mean, it will pay off. It really will. Um, I've had numerous instances, and you're familiar with my cousin Trey.
Yep.
We've waded waist deep water. Not taking boots and pants and have time for all that. Waded waist deep water to get across the river to get in position because that was going to be the only opportunity we had,
Yep.
and it's paid off. Quite a few times, been quite a few times it hasn't, where we had to walk back to a truck with wet underwear.
Yeah.
It is what it is. But the times that it does work, I mean, it makes it absolutely worth it. And climbing a mountain, when you have nothing left. Your legs are completely gone. And by the time, you do get sat down on a turkey or whatever, you're breathing so hard and it sounds like Indians beating drums in your head. You can't even hardly call to the turkey because you have no breath to call to him. But, it makes it worth it. But then again, if you're that guy that's just like, I'm not going to go to that length, you can still be successful if you're strategic about how and where you hunt. You can still be successful. I don't think everybody has access to great pasture land, but also everybody don't have access to big hardwood mountains either. So you got to take what you can get and learn that property the best you can. Learn That's the biggest thing is if you got a piece of property that you're going to be able to hunt multiple times or multiple years. um, Even if it's not scouting for actual sign, walk that property. Know there's a ditch that goes down through here. Old creek ditches are actually fantastic to get through a bottom. If you got a turkey that's, living in a bottom, it's heat of the day, he's 150 yards down through there. Creeks, if they're not running, and you've got on rubber boots or waterproof boots, you can drop down in some, a deep creek bank and I ain't saying crawl, but you can get really close to a turkey if you're staying in a creek and you've got 3-4 foot banks that are washed out. I mean, we've got within shotgun range many times just staying in a little winding creek bed and just either listening for drumming, listening for gobbling, trying to make sure you don't bump anything. But you can get really close if you just use terrain.
Yeah. So tell me at what point, because it's kind of hard for me to explain this, and I'd like to hear it from you. Is there's been times in hunts, I usually almost always have somebody with me. I'm teaching, we're hunting together for the first time. A lot of times, just because of our organization, it's newer hunters. At what point do you know to make that decision that if I don't cross this creek, if I don't climb this mountain, if I don't crawl through this thicket, if I don't get wet or uncomfortable right now, I'm not going to kill this bird. At what point do you know when to flip that page and say, like, it's go time? We're going to kill this turkey. If we're
Right.
going to kill it, this is the only way.
Especially if the morning has played out where that's the only turkey that I have, in the game. It's gonna make my decision a lot easier because if I've got plenty of time and I've got the morning to hunt, I'm gonna do my best to stay in one's zip code. So if I can help it, I'm gonna do what I got to do to get close to him. But going back to having somebody new with you, that throws a little wrench in the gears because obviously if it's a new hunter, you don't want to give them a you know horrible experience. Some people enjoy that type of stuff, that
Yeah.
more, you know, hard nosed adventure. Let's crawl, let's get dirty. And then some people are like, this is the worst sport ever. Like,
Yeah.
thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Um, and some people, just to be honest, I'm not going to sit here and tout my, being in shape because I'm obviously not. But like, if you can't go, that's a limiting factor too.
Yep.
If you can't walk 4 or 5 miles in the morning, like that's going to be a problem, in some instances, because
Yeah.
there's going to be a lot of times where just going to a green field and sitting down, that'll work. And there's going to be times that you're so far out of the game, you should just stayed home.
Yep. Yeah. I think I've gotten to the point, and Trey came in, he hunted with me one time, and I want to hear what your take is on like your preferred method of hunting is for turkeys. But Trey basically, we go and we're trying to locate one. We're not hearing anything, and I'm like, dude, I know this spot right here. They will be here before 10 o'clock.
Hmm.
And he's like, okay. And I'm like, no, no, no.
I've taught him so well.
Like, like we can sit here, man. We can sit here and we can get this guy's first turkey. He's like, no. But now I'm to the point where I've killed so many turkeys that I am now at the point where it's like I want one to play the game with me. I don't
Sure.
want to deer hunt him, and that's what he kept saying. No, no, we're not deer hunting him today. And I'm like, dude, we're trying to get this guy's first turkey. I'm willing to do whatever it takes.
Right.
And he's like, no, 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 we don't need to teach him that way. We need to teach him. And it's like, okay, you have the gobble to gun experience, or maybe they don't gobble all the way to the gun, but they're gobbling some, they're playing the game. There's some strategy there. And then there are times where you just go set up on sign and you're like, I know they're coming here. Like I got one property that they don't gobble a lot, and
Yep.
not really a heavy predator population and definitely not a heavy hunting pressure.
Mhm.
They just don't gobble a lot for some reason.
Seen that a lot of times.
And but I know if I go and take anybody that's brand new that
They're gonna get an opportunity to see some turkeys and possibly kill one.
exactly, and they might be the type of hunter that is not like they don't want that extreme experience. They're not gonna, some people just don't want to. I don't want to say work for it, but some people just want to go and enjoy God's creation. And they want to take in the sunrise and the birds,
Mhm.
and they're happy. Like they've defined success for their day as, man, I got to see the sunrise and the birds, and I define success by killing a bird. And I'm working on the other type of success.
Right.
It's like I can walk out of the woods and not have heard anything and not have seen anything and not have killed anything and be content and happy with it. That's something I constantly fight
Sure.
internally. But there are people that we can go to those spots and we can sit there, and if we don't see anything by 10 and they got to go to work or whatever the case is, they've defined it as a happy day. But let's define what you would say is your ideal turkey hunt, and what are you, in a morning time on a property, are you going to bounce property to property? Do you have that experience, or are you staying until a certain time? Like, so what is the experience, and then how long are you willing to do whatever it is to have that experience?
So for me, ideally, I like to hunt in the woods. I'm not a field hunter, a green field hunter, pasture. More so probably because I don't have a lot of access to that. I might like it more if I, had it, but I like to hunt in the woods. So preferably big hardwoods, hills and hollers, mountains. Um, and I think for me, like I was talking about earlier, getting to a high spot, listening, whether I hear one or five, making a decision on what I think could be right, could be wrong. That's part of the game too. Which turkey is going to be in the most advantageous spot for me to move on him, position myself to kill him. Um, and then, then making that move, getting there and, making that setup work. Cause it's almost like the planning of the shot is the most fun to me. Figuring out how I'm going to get I mean, I've killed enough turkeys that just shooting a turkey is not really doing a lot for me.
Yep.
I can remember when we were kids, that's all it was about is kill him. Whether it was crawl across a wet field, and pop up over a terrace row and shoot him at 10 yards, or you know, all the different methods that you could do it. There was a certain point, I can't tell you when that was, but there was a certain point that I decided, I love this so much. This is how I want to do it. You know, don't get me wrong. There's great. Everybody loves taking the safety off and squeezing the trigger. Whether you're talking about turkeys or deer or ducks or anything, but there comes a point where you got to enjoy the way you're doing it too. And for me, big woods is what I enjoy the most. It's not always the most productive, but that's what I enjoy the most.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
I
that's
think
so.
Trey's the same way too. We grew up
Yep.
hunting similar areas and then hunted together a pretty good bit. And obviously, I won't say where any of these areas are, but some of them, we had access to really pretty pastures and fields and big mountains around it, and we've killed way more turkeys in the woods than we have in those fields.
Yep. Yeah. I think this is advice I give to a lot of new hunters is there is a season that you really need to go through where you're just killing.
As bad as that sounds,
Yeah.
I think that goes for almost any animal, whether you're talking about deer, turkeys, ducks, whatever. Um, I at a young age, it was very important that I killed a limit. Like that was my used
Yep.
to it was 5 in Alabama, so it was
Yep.
like that was everything.
Yep.
Could I do it in a week? Could I do it in 2 weeks?
Right.
And now I'm like, can I stretch it out all season? You know what I
Right.
mean? Like
So true.
I want to hunt the type of turkey that I want to hunt,
Yep.
and I'll get hung up on, a certain bird. If he's causing me some problems,
Yeah.
I've had some that I've hunted for a week straight every day,
Yep.
you know, and can you educate a turkey to the point that you can't kill him? Maybe I've come close, I think,
Yeah.
but that's when using the ground, using terrain, pays off. But the
Yeah.
ideal spring morning is is what you make it.
Yeah.
Somebody sitting here will say like me, I love to be in the hardwoods on a mountainside, and then somebody will say there's nothing better than you know, a big pretty field and a turkey strutting across, and you get to see him for, because look, I mean, the fact of the matter that I hunt in the woods, I don't really get to see that turkey, but for
Yeah,
just a few
it's
seconds.
so true.
Most of the time, I don't. I get to hear a lot of him, but I
Yep,
don't get to see him because if I can see him for a long time, I'm probably not going to kill him.
that's exactly right.
Whereas
It's so true.
a field turkey, you know, yeah, you do get to soak in some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, yeah, or decoys. That was something. So I'm really big on when I'm teaching brand new hunters. It's what can you do legally to have a successful
Mhm.
to harvest something, right? And so to maybe new hunters or maybe to non-hunters that might come across this is like when I say like there's just got to be a season of killing where you're going out and like deer, you shoot a ton with your rifle, get that experience. Okay, you want something more challenging? Let's go to a bow.
Mhm.
Man, every chance you get, whether it's
Yeah,
just lost at
yeah,
spots
that
or
doe's in trouble.
yeah, every time a deer's in front of you, you need to shoot to just gain that experience.
Mhm.
And so with turkeys, I went through this season where, okay, it's like I want to kill one, and then the next season I didn't kill one at all, and that made me mad. It's like, okay, I thought I knew what to do. I killed one bird, and
Sure.
it's like, and then the next season I didn't kill anything. And then so the next season I'm like, okay, I'm going to learn how to call. I'm going to learn their biology, their habits. I
Soak it
like
all in.
obsess over it. And then I think that was the season. I think it was still 5 that season. I killed 5 in like 7 days, and I'm like, oh, I'm a king. You know,
No one can touch me.
that's right. Yeah, I am floating. And then the next season it was like, okay, I killed 4 in 5 days because then the limit
Mhm.
dropped, and then it was like 4 in 6 days, 4 in 5 days, and it's like, okay, I want to kill 4 in 4 days. That's what I want to do, and I could never make it happen. And then this past season, it was just like I got to the point where a field bird might be out there, like you talked about. I know I can low crawl out there. My back's probably going to be spazzing out of its mind, and I'm probably going to be soaking wet from the dew,
Mhm.
and I could do it, and it would be fun to an extent. But it's just like I've done it before, and it's like, okay, now it's like I really want to learn how to play the game, how to communicate with the flock, how to
Sure.
it's just like a different level of challenge has now appeared, and it's like, that's how I want to hunt. And so last year I killed one turkey. And when I killed it, it was like, that wasn't really that fun. I had called to him all morning. And then it's like 10 a.m. and him and his brother, finally walk out. And I'm like,
Right.
and I'm like, well, that wasn't,
Yeah,
it
you
was
almost
just
feel
like,
like you cheated him and you.
that's exactly right. Yeah, it's like, man, now I don't get to play the game with him next year. And that
Yeah.
was late in the season because I had mentored a lot of people early on last year and had some really cool hunts.
Mhm.
Some of them worked out, some of them didn't. But it's like I think everybody has to reach the point where they've killed enough in a certain type of way that they kind of level up, or you need a new challenge, or like I don't even really know how to put it into
So
words.
the whole topic talking about the unkillable turkey, it is so rewarding when you do kill that turkey that you've messed with last weekend and the weekend before that, and a lot of times it's just, you know, everybody always asks, what do you do differently or blah, what, how do you kill turkey? Well,
Yeah,
I hunt almost every day, given the fact that it's, not coming a tornado or a thunderstorm. I go every day.
yep,
And, it's a game of numbers. If you hunt every day, guess what? Like, you're going to
so
be
true.
pretty
It's
successful.
so true.
It's
It's so
like
true.
guys that, that fish for a living. Guess what they do almost every day?
Yep.
They go fishing.
Yep.
And
Or they're working on their bait and tackle, or they're
yeah,
redoing something,
yeah, and
it's always
I
something.
go almost every day. Again, it's, springtime. There's some days that it's just going to be, terrible. I'm not going to go in a, tornado, but um, even like, I think it was last year before last. It come terrible rain all morning till like 8:30 or 9 o'clock, and I sat in the truck just pouting, lip poked out because I was actually off that day, and I could hunt.
Yep.
I didn't have to worry about getting out of the woods by 10 a.m. I could go all day, and it's just poured down rain, and I'm
Yep.
sitting there like, kid that just, lost his toy. And then it let up at like 8:45, 9 o'clock. And I was talking to a friend of mine on the phone, and I was like, hey, it's letting up. I'm gonna run down the road here and see if I can, see if I can see one in this power line or whatever. And I killed one and it was back of the truck in 7 minutes.
Yep.
No,
That was a
it was
good day
it was
last year.
total luck. It was total luck.
Yeah.
Like I went down the road and just caught the edge of a hen crossing the road, and I was able to peel off and yelp a few times, and all of a sudden I heard drumming. Turkey never gobbled, but I heard drumming, and he come down the road, and that's another thing is wet, rainy days. Those fields and roads and stuff are your friend.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
the biggest thing. If you've got a road system, that you're on, whether it's gravel, dirt, doesn't matter. How many times have you seen lots and lots of turkey tracks and you can tell they happened either while it was raining or right after the rain?
Yep.
Like if you've got access to some open areas during or right after a rain, you're better be there.
Yep. Yeah. It hasn't rained in what, a week now or
Mhm.
so. So this morning, I got tomorrow, it's when this podcast airs, it'll be past that, but like tomorrow's youth opener
Sure.
here in Alabama. So I'm taking my son. He's finally at the age where he can shoot the gun by himself, unassisted. He can call a little bit.
It's gonna be fun.
He's been working. I'm super excited. But it was the property we were talking about earlier that the turkeys just don't show up until they show up.
Right.
And it's always right at the start of season. So I hadn't seen a single turkey on it until 2 days ago. And I had went and, walked it, drove it, maxed out everything I can on the property, not a single track, nothing after it rained the other day real good. And I'm like, God, man, I actually started
but they will be there.
I started making phone calls to people saying, hey, Saturday, can I come hunt your spot? You got any, you got any, can I please come? Just my son, I started making those phone calls just in case. And then they showed up 2 days ago. I'm like, whew. But I went out there this morning and I'm just riding the logging roads in my truck because I don't want them to see a person. I don't want them to get startled. And I know sometimes they'll spook a little bit with the vehicle, but not like they're not blowing out of there.
Right.
So this morning I'm just like going through and I'm kind of riding these logging roads and I'm checking fields. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I'm in my truck, windows are tinted, but I still do the whole like, oh, don't make eye contact, just drive and like act like you don't see them. And I'm like, dude, I'm in the truck, they can't see. But I didn't slow down. I kept my pace. I'm like, all right, we'll be there tomorrow,
have
big
hens
boy.
with him.
Yep, 2 hens, him strutting. I assume he's the brother of the one that we killed last year. But it was weird because 2 days ago there was 2 strutters and 2 hens, and today there was only 1 strutter and 2 hens. And so it might be that that's a boss Tom, and he's pushed those other subordinates. Maybe
Could be. I see a lot though. The early season is notorious, at least in our neck of the woods here, for there being multiple gobblers together still.
Yeah.
I mean, they're doing it. They're gobbling. They're looking for hens, but they're just running in that. And again, I don't know if it's brother, whatever, but it's definitely like same age class turkey.
That's
together.
exactly right.
Rarely are you going to see one that's got 1.5 spurs and then a 2-year-old together. I mean,
Right.
I've seen it, but it's pretty
Yeah, it's
rare.
rare.
Usually, it's age class turkeys together.
That's right. Yeah.
But so you're excited about taking your little boy?
I am. He's been working really hard on his calling, and it might be, I'm fighting the internal battle right now of how much do I let him call,
Sure.
and how much.
But how if he's look, and that's another thing. I will say calling is important, but calling is probably one of the more least important things as
So,
far as
yep.
you need to sound like a turkey. Your cadence more so than your tone or rasp or whatever you're looking for. Obviously, I've done it a long time, so I can call fairly well. But I will tell you this: I have heard hens in the woods that I would have put paychecks that's some idiot that does not know what he's doing coming up this hill, and I'm about to have to get into a confrontation with somebody poaching or somebody on public, and it's a hen. So don't think for a minute you have to sound like, a competition caller to kill turkeys. That is
So
could
true.
not be further from the truth.
Man, that is coming from you with all your years of experience and success. Like that right there was probably the best thing you could have said to tell.
don't.
If anybody's watching this, like if you are watching this right now, you've made it to this point, rewind it and listen to that one more time because it's so true. And that's what I'm going to have a conversation with him tonight. He's learned how to owl hoot. He's learned how to crow call. He's learned how to even do the hawk screech.
Yeah.
He's worked hard, and then he's also he knows how to use. He can voice call like I can a little bit, as long as he I can help him mimic it a little bit, as long as he gets on that right pitch. But he can run a pot call now. We don't really try to pull out the box call; it's too loud. But he is.
If he can just get the cadence, like
That's
that's
it.
the biggest
Yep.
thing. The speed, the cadence. It doesn't really matter if it's super clean, super raspy. Sounds like a door shut. And if you can get that yelp 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 3 4 note yelp, you can kill turkeys with that
So
all
true.
day. I've rode around in a truck with a mouth call in my mouth since I was 13 years old. If there's a sound that a turkey makes, I can make it. But you know how many turkeys I kill with just a 4 note yelp? Like that's all you need.
Yep.
Again, there's situations where certain things are applicable, really subtle, clucks and purrs and light kikis and little whines and things. But typically, how close are you to a turkey? Like, I mean, obviously you get, you see a lot of turkeys from a deer stand. How close are turkeys to you when you can actually hear them doing those really small, they're very close.
Very.
If I need to be making those noises, I should have already killed him.
Yep.
I mean, to be honest, the really aggressive, that thing, that's usually like not necessarily alarm, but like very curious. Like a hen's usually doing that when she's kind of made you.
Yep.
She hasn't like completely decided that you're a booger over there next to that tree, but she's kind of made you. Why do I want to mimic that?
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like if, in the times that I've really got to witness a hen take a gobbler from me, I'm working a bird and a hen comes in, she's yelping too, and she ends up taking him or gets with him before he makes it to me. You know, those are the kind of sounds that I really try to key in on.
Yep.
What was she doing, that either he decided, she's better or, whatever. And typically it's maybe a couple of cuts thrown in there and a 3 or 4 note yelp.
Yep. It's so true. And that's one of the biggest pieces of advice that Trey gave me when it was my first year. I was like, "Hey man, I want a turkey hunt. I got permission at this property." And he's like, "No, you didn't." And I'm like, "Yeah, dude, nobody's ever had permission there." And he's like, "I know." And it's like, he's like, "Dude, you're going to limit out." Like, no doubt. And I was like, "I hope
Good.
so." Yeah, I hope so. I killed one,
Right.
but that's the biggest thing. He said, if you can just get a mouth call, and this is the point, I was like, I could actually do it with my voice then, but I didn't have the confidence that it sounded right. And I think there's so many people that are new that they don't have the confidence. Now, there are people who have the confidence that are terrible. I will say that probably record yourself and then play it next to some
Sure.
YouTube or something, and hear what you sound like. Because I had
It can be bad.
I had a guy last year.
Typically it's the cadence that's bad or not.
This was not the cadence. This guy gets in the truck with me. He's like, "Man, I'm ready. I've been practicing. I'm sounding pretty good." And he was confident as can be. And that dude got in there, and it was like a dog barking that had been, ran over halfway by a car or something, And I'm like, "Hey, man, look, I love you,
Let me do the calling.
but don't call today. Like, don't
But,
say anything."
what I see the biggest mistake, in a mouth call is, that note can literally sound a wide array or, variety of sounds, like as far as the clean to rasp or whatever, but that note has to start high, end low, and be crisp stops.
Yes.
When you run a mouth call, you need individual notes.
Yep.
It can't be it can't all roll together. It's
Yep.
gotta yelp, yelp, yelp. Now you can speed it up or slow it down some, but clear start and stop of each note in that yelp. And then it can have whatever tone you want it to, or whatever the tone that call will produce.
Yep, and I would say the second mistake that I made as a young hunter is the volume being too high with that call. Like I could put a lot of pressure and a lot of volume behind my mouth call, and I didn't realize
That
what
carries a
a
long way.
long ways, man. Like I had a gobbler one time, and I'm like year 3 in, maybe 4, and this guy thinks I'm just this incredible hunter, and I'm like, no, dude, I just had an incredible spot at that time.
Right.
But we go out to his property, and there's a gobbler like maybe 80 yards away on the roost at daybreak, and we're set up. Now that I look back at it, we were set up perfect. Like he would have flown down right to us, and we would have killed him within 5 minutes.
Right.
And I'm get on that call, and I'm like, wah, 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 wah. And it about probably shook him off the limb.
Mhm.
He's like, "What the heck?" Because he was just gobbling on his own. Like, he was fired up. There was no hens around.
Right.
And, man, he flew off that roost as far
Go
as he could. And my buddy's like, "Well, why'd he do that?" I said, "Man, I don't know. I thought I sounded pretty good."
Yeah, I mean, a yelp travels a long way, and you kinda gotta know, when to turn up the volume, if the situation's playing out with this turkey that it feels aggressive, you can be aggressive. I would say I'm an aggressive caller until I can't be.
Yeah.
Obviously, everybody loves to hear turkey gobbled, and I do just as much, and I'm probably still guilty of it just as much today as I was 10 years ago, over calling to a turkey. I've probably killed a lot of turkeys, um, that I probably shouldn't have, just because I wanted to hear him gobble. But uh, there's a there's a s- I think a place of diminishing return is everybody's like, you want to call as least amount as possible. That's true to an extent, but it all depends on the situation too.
Yep. Yeah, I think something that every turkey hunter that I know that has years of experience, like you do, like Dave has, like anybody that we talk to, the number one thing that you said it right at the beginning is the temperature. Like, what does the temperature of that bird or
Hmm.
that day even, and you can have the same turkey on the next day,
Act
with
completely different.
completely different. And that's been, I think, what I have taken away from turkey hunting as I've gained more experience is reading the temperature for that specific day. So like when I went out this morning, I didn't hear a single gobble. I didn't hear any of the hens. I heard a fly down. That's all I heard. And I'm sitting on one field thinking that that's where they're going to come to, and they went to the second field, and I heard the fly down away from me, and I'm like, they're probably going to that second field. So I got in the truck, and I'm like, I'll just drive the logging road and see. Boom.
Hmm.
I had never heard anything. Now 3 days ago,
Oh yeah,
you know,
I had a place
just crazy.
Saturday. I heard six.
And I know it's the same birds.
Right. I
You
heard
know,
I heard a place on Saturday. I stood on a ridge and I heard six, and then I stood on that same ridge yesterday morning and heard one.
yeah,
And I know those turkeys are there.
yep,
It's still early season. There's still gobblers are grouped up. There's still some groups of hens that hadn't busted up. They're there. They just for whatever reason. I mean, although we all try to stay pretty even keeled every day, you or I neither one wake up in the exact same mood every day. I mean, it's just part of it. I love it when they're in that mood of just like suicide. It's I'm gonna
yeah.
gobble at every woodpecker and every because that's another thing. Like if a turkey will continue to gobble,
Oh man,
um, even if he's not acting like he wants to just march down the gun barrel, if he'll just continue to gobble, my odds of killing him is pretty good.
so
I
true.
can
Yep,
move, I can move and try to position myself, but he's got to let me know where he's at, or else if you're just stumbling through the woods, you're gonna spook him and never even know you spooked
that's
him.
exactly right.
Most turkeys that
Yep.
you spook, you didn't hear putt, you didn't hear fly off. It's just like a deer. How many times have you walked a property that is eat up with deer? You never saw one. How many deer did you spook?
Yep.
Probably at most deer on that property.
Yep.
Like you never saw him, but that's why like and if he'll keep gobbling, let me know where he's at, let me know
Yep.
what I can or can't do, you know, he's probably in trouble.
Yeah. When Dave was with us at our community night, we just sent the Q&A book around and everybody writes, and we got guys that have never turkey hunted before, and somebody asked the question about scent control, and we all died out laughing, thought it was funny.
But if you
And
don't know,
Dave's
how would
like,
you know?
wait, I had this one situation with this one bird that if I didn't come in downwind, that I would spook the deer and therefore spook the turkeys.
Hmm.
And we saw a video. Cole sent it to me. He's on our team. He was on the podcast last week. A video where all these deer go busting out of the field. Let's say it's 10 a.m. We'll put that video up here for everybody to see. And then it's like nothing's in the camera for a second, and then all of a sudden this gobbler goes running back through the woods. And I'm like, how many times have we unknowingly
Oh, all the time.
put the scent down through there, and we've let deer know we're there, and the deer take off, so the turkey takes off.
Right.
And then, and so
And
it's like,
it goes back to the individual too, every turkey's different in what he's going to tolerate.
yep,
I've seen turkeys that, for instance, a good friend of mine was hunting with me a couple years ago and had a turkey just couldn't have set up the situation any better. Turkey's gobbling, his head off. we're in a fire break that there's a little bend in at like 25, 30 yards. I'm 10 yards behind my buddy. He's on a big pine tree that he's not, it's perfect. Like you couldn't have drawn it up any better. And all of a sudden, like turkey shuts up for, a few minutes and couldn't figure out, a lot of times that's either really good or really bad. He's either broke and he's coming, or and all of a sudden, a fox comes trotting down the road right
Yep.
to us, and it gets like 10 yards from us and freezes. And my buddy was like, "Should I shoot it?" And I was like, "Just let him go." And within just a couple minutes after that fox trotted on past us, turkey gobbled right back from where he was at.
Yep.
They see stuff daily in their life.
That's right.
Whether it's coyotes, foxes, cars, people, they're gonna get spooked at some point. But every turkey's different on how long it takes him to recover.
Yep.
I've flown gobblers off a limb trying to get too close, especially in early season, and think, gosh, I've ruined this. And within an hour or so, he's right back to doing turkey things.
Yep. Yeah. We had a turkey on a property that is flooded with coyotes,
Mhm.
and we called him in. It had to be the longest I've ever been able to actually hear a bird and call it in, like at least 600 yards at minimum, like the craziest thing I've ever seen. The turkey 100 yards from us was like, nah, I didn't put any hens to bed over there last
Right.
night. I'm not coming that way. He went the other way. And but this turkey came from the next state, and but on the way, a coyote comes rolling up. I told the guy that's with me, I said, shoot it. So we shot it. 5, 10 minutes later, we killed the turkey.
Mhm.
It was the wildest thing. But you talk about the tolerance. That's just so true. And then so I think, from I think the best way that we can pull some of the greatest information out of you. I mean, you've already given us so much, but let's talk about one turkey like that you have hunted the longest time, or the one that's the most memorable for day after day after day. Break us down from start to finish of what that looked like.
There's two, but I'll tell you about the one that's probably more interesting. It's been a few years ago. I had an area that, for whatever reason, this particular area seemed to have a lot of birds this particular year. There was 5 or 6 different birds, gobbling in this. We'll call it 400 acres. Um, and I killed one, I think, opening day. Pretty typical hunt. Like it wasn't, anything special about it. Um, and then I went. I think Trey might have been with me. I went to hunt this place. Turkey gobbled across a big holler, and you know stood there for a minute. Listened to him gobbled. A couple more times. And I said, well, we need to get on his side. Like, and at this point, it was on up in the morning, not super late, but probably 8:30 or so. And I had actually yelped, to strike this bird. And this is not the first time this has happened, but of course we do a big loop, go down, cross, come back up, and I'm one little finger roll, probably I'm gonna say from where I had said this turkey was gobbling from, I'm 100, 125. And, we're half out of breath and I'm like, all right, let's check him. Let's see where he's at, and, I slide up, standing next to a tree and try to catch my breath enough to, get a call in my mouth, and I yelp, and this joker gobbles from right where we were standing. Took us probably 20 minutes to get over there. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding. So, long story short, we make an adjustment. And I don't think either one of us could hunt that long that day. And by the time we, got back around to him, he had shut up, gone, whatever. So, the next time I got to hunt him, I think it was the very next day, I went in there. It was pretty windy. Our weather, something wasn't great. And I made a decision to not be too aggressive, just because the conditions weren't favorable for me to be able to. I could move pretty well because of the wind, but wasn't going to be able to hear him very well. I didn't expect him to want to be where he was at in that high wind. I felt like he was going to make a move probably different than what he normally would. Turkeys will do that. If you get a day that's really windy or really bad weather, whatever they're, somewhat consistent with doing, you'll see a break in that pattern. And sure enough, he went the complete opposite way that day, and he went up some fields that were several hundred yards off the property. Um, so fast forward another day, I think I've got a beautiful morning. Like this is what I'm going to kill him. And I go in there and I said, I'm going to go an hour early and I'm going to go ahead and get down across and up where he likes to be, where he's roosted. Cause he was pretty much just pitching straight behind him to the hillside that he was on. He wasn't really flying far or moving far, really open woods. So, I make this 45-minute walk or more, in there in the dark, and I slide up next to a big, oak tree, and I'm like, I got cover. I'm just waiting on daylight. And I'm waiting on daylight, and I'm waiting on daylight, and finally, it's breaking, and I hear a turkey gobble. I knew it wasn't him, way off, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, where's he at? What? It's plenty light at this point that this turkey should be gobbling, and I haven't heard anything. No drumming. Sometimes I feel like on a good quiet morning, I can hear drumming, say inside 70.
Yeah.
Drumming's something that if somebody hasn't been around it, you wouldn't even really know what to listen
Yeah.
for.
It's the hardest
It's a
thing.
very nuanced. I don't know even know what the word would be. Like you
Yeah.
can't describe it to somebody.
Yep.
You can try.
I honestly, like, I've only been drumming before and I can't hear it.
It's a frequency thing for a lot of people. But again, I feel like if it's a calm morning, about inside 70, I can hear
Yep.
drumming.
Yeah. I hear spitting a lot,
Mhm.
like I'll hear the spitting. That's what I key in on. But it's for some reason that frequency level is hard for me to hear drumming. Like I've heard it maybe 2 times out of 20 that
Right.
I know they've been doing it.
So I sat there and sat there and sat there, and I'd put myself the way this terrain is. There's like little finger ridge rolls in the side of this hill, and I had put myself what I felt like was one roll. Of course, there was no way of knowing exactly which one he was on from where I'd been listening to him from, but I felt like I was probably sat down inside 100 yards from this turkey. And I sat there for quite a while. It's up plenty light. He should be gobbling. He should be getting ready to be on the ground by now. So I was like, well, you know what? I'm gonna yelp to him. So, I already had a call in my mouth. I picked my hand up, and I yelp. And as soon as I yelp, this turkey pitches out of a tree, like 2 trees behind me. Pop, 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 gone. And I'm like, well, no wonder.
Man.
He listened to me walk in and he's seen me
Yeah.
adjusting my knees and stuff. He didn't
Yep.
spook because I was kind of on the backside of a tree, but like he just sat up there like a statue, wasn't gonna say a word. And I'm like, this is great. So a day or so later, I come back in there and I did really have intentions of hunting that turkey. But again, he's right back in the same spot, gobbling again. And I'm like, you sucker. Like now, like
Yeah.
now it's a me versus you thing.
That's right.
And I tangled with him for a bit that day. I think I almost got him killed that day. He did pretty good. I got on the side with him, but eventually it was a full week before I really kind of was able to figure out how I could get to him without him knowing that I was there. Because obviously he was, I've been able to walk right up underneath turkeys before, and I don't know if they just sleep that hard or what. They don't know, but obviously he was way more aware in the dark what was
Yep.
going on than what most of them are. You,
Yep.
you can get surprisingly close to turkeys on the roost if you go in the dark.
Yeah, I've had both happen. I've had it to where I've got up under them. I didn't know they were there. They scare me when they gobble.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking like almost under this tree.
Sure.
And then I've had it exactly what you talked about, where they don't make a peep, and then
Well, and
they're gone.
I think too, like I actually don't want to be super close to one
No,
on the
me
limb. Like
neither.
you know, I would say, you know, 100, 80 to 100 is like ideal.
Yep.
Any closer than that, I can't do anything.
Yeah.
You can't scratch your nose.
Nope.
You really can't call because he's got an advantage of being up in a tree, and he won't. At that point, he's going to want to see that
Yep.
hen before he pitches down. I don't know
So
how many
true.
times I've had a turkey just stand up there on the limb for. I mean, I've had turkeys stand on the limb till 9 o'clock.
Yeah. Bouncing that head back and
Yeah,
forth,
and
and they're
every
looking,
time you call, you keep him up there another 10
and
minutes,
that's
another
exactly
15
right.
minutes. Like
Yep.
at that point, if you see it's a turkey that he's wanting to just stand on the limb and gobble, you need to just hush.
Yeah.
You need to just hush, let him get on the ground. And now that he's on the ground, now he can make a decision if he wants to be responsive and come or whatever. But a lot of times you'll keep them in a tree longer yelping to him.
Yep.
If he feels like he's in a place that he can see well and he wants to see a hint, he's just going to stand there.
Yep. I'll never forget one time. This is what taught me a lot about a roosted bird, but how I learned this was not on a roosted bird. I bumped a flock of hens. There might have been a gobbler with them, but when they all ran back down this creek valley, he saw them running and he bumped up in the tree. And so he was gobbling coming to me. Well, I'm trying to reposition and I bump the hens and they go running up that creek drainage to him. And then he's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So he goes up in the tree. That joker I could see him. It was about 120, 130 yards away. I could see him with binoculars. He stayed up in that tree and gobbled for 3 hours, and he
He
couldn't.
wants to see a hen walk
Yeah,
back
he
out.
could not. He couldn't see me. The way that I was pushing the noise off the way the topography was. I was trying to push it with the leaves backing around the corner, basically. But he wanted her because those hens spooked. And that,
Show yourself.
man, that was a big, big learning day for me.
I have purposely though flown hens off before in a situation where I know they're about to mess up everything that I've worked so hard to set up.
Yes.
I've got a
Yeah.
gobbler that's 200 yards down this ridge, and I've finally made it to where I feel like I'm in a position that I can kill him. And then all this interaction between he and I has now yelped up a hen, and she's come up from a different direction. Oh, you bet your tail.
Yeah.
I've stood up and hey, get out of here.
I threw a
Like,
stick at one before.
yeah, get
Yeah,
out.
just
You're not gonna
go away.
you're not gonna ruin
Yep.
everything that
Yeah.
I've worked for.
Yeah, she's gonna intersect like a hunter on public land is
Mhm.
what I feel like.
Yeah.
I don't hunt public land personally for turkeys in at least in Alabama. And dude, I've heard all these stories about hunters intersecting other people's birds that they're working. And so like I imagine that when that hen, I've had hens come in and I like throw sticks at them or, a lot of times I've never been in a place where I felt like the gobbler was far enough away that I could
Get away with
stand up
something.
or anything, but I've thrown limbs at him and got him to push away at least enough for me to kill him.
Mhm.
And yeah, but that's what I imagine is like that public land situation where somebody robs a turkey from you.
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever had that happen. I mean, I've definitely had it happen on club land.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
again, we've talked at length about the areas and stuff that we both hunt, and I'll be the first to tell you there's many times that hunting club turkeys are more pressured and harder to kill
yep.
than a public land turkey.
Deer the same way,
I mean, like, I'll
dude.
tell you right now,
Yeah,
like, I have more confidence that a couple of the places on, one particular lease that I have, those turkeys get hunted harder than probably any turkey in the state. I mean,
yeah.
there's somebody there every
Every
day.
day for weeks, for weeks.
A little while back, it's been quite a few years ago. I don't want to say it was an altercation, but I was in I was in a club and I was gonna, I'd brought a friend from Arkansas. He loves to turkey hunt, but turkeys in Arkansas are very spotty.
Yeah,
They have some decent hunting out there in places, but as a whole, the state's it's pretty poor
yeah,
turkey hunting state. Um, so he would come and hunt with me here, every spring. Plus, our season's much longer,
right.
comes in earlier. And I was in a club, and I'll say it was, in South Alabama, and a lot of turkeys on this place, a lot of turkeys on this place, and we had a scenario where we're at the every club has like a sign out board or a pin out board camp area, and typically that's not much in play during turkey season. Kind of people just I'm going to hunt this area. I'm not you don't pin a stand or a field,
Right,
or I'm not going to because there's no telling where I'm going to end up.
right.
But, this guy made it quite clear that, he was going to this field and gonna hunt, this area. And okay, I'm not gonna argue with you because we had, basically told him we're going out this road. He made it pretty clear that on this road that we were going, he was going to this field. And I thought, okay, you know. And I had noticed like a bunch of truck tracks because this was obviously not close to home. So I was only hunting there maybe once a week. And I had noticed just like, I mean, this looked like Talladega, truck tracks into this road, onto this field. And I'm like, my gosh, what is happening down there that is so. So this turkey obviously had been roosting somewhere near this field. He's gobbling like crazy in the mornings. And then he's obviously not dying because this guy's going and hunting him every day. Um, and I told, my buddy that was with me, I said that, talking about the unkillable turkey, I was like, he's done mess with that bird so much. He's unkillable. Like, we need to move, further down the road, see what we can, come up with. So, long story short, he was able to kill a turkey that morning. My friend was, and this guy that was, for the most part, rude to us about where he was going. I heard his truck leave at like 8 o'clock. He was gone.
That's a good day.
Yeah. So, I just thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to go down there and just see what, I'd been to that field, before. It's a very small green field. It's not probably a quarter acre.
Yeah.
And I said, I want to see what this guy's, what he's doing. Like, this is crazy. I mean, how much he's been there. So I
Right.
slipped, my buddy, he's going to take a nap in the truck. We had some sandwiches and stuff. And I said, I'm going to slip down that field. It's like 1 o'clock. I slipped down there and, I had all my stuff, and I get to the field, and I'm looking, and of course, there's turkey tracks in the sand and all this stuff. And I look up, and I just see the top of his fan at the
Oh,
back of the
yeah.
field, and I was like, "Uh oh!" And I dropped down, and like I ended up crawling around the edge of the field, and he had like 10 hens, and just pure luck. But I crawled up behind this big pine tree that was like left out in the middle of the green field. It was like an
Yep.
isolated tree. And I crawled up behind this tree, and I probably laid there for 10 minutes. And finally, he kind of worked his way up through there. A hen had pretty much caught me. She had got within
Yeah.
like 5 yards, but he had made it to about 35,
Yeah.
and I shot him. And I don't know why, but like arrogance or whatever. It was probably not the best thing to do, but I broke that turkey's wing in half, and I took my shell and I put that turkey's wing in that shell hole, and I left it on the gate. So when he come back in there the next morning, he knew
Yeah, he
he was in
gone.
vain. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Those guys are always the greatest. I had a guy that I dealt with. Man, he was just a total tool. And I knew at least that year he'd killed 10 turkeys. Like
Right.
at least. Like just a total nut job and just at all costs kind of guy,
Hmm.
and just not my type of dude. And but we got permission on the same property, and
Oh,
he was like, "Oh,
bummer.
let me know every time you're coming." And I'm like, "Okay." He's like, "Hey, I saw your truck there yesterday." I said, "Oh, yeah,
Phone
yeah.
was dead. Sorry.
I was just picking up, picking up my trail camera or something. I'm like, I'm not telling him." And that dude, he just was a maniac. But
Turkey hunters are worse than deer hunters.
oh, by far, in complete, yeah.
We
Anyways,
we can be very like territorial,
oh yeah,
but the thing about it, what I would consider a true turkey hunter is um, he understands every other turkey hunter's frustration too.
yep,
Like I still get just as frustrated, when I have bad experiences, but I've probably been, you know, the cause of some bad experiences too, because I'm have the mindset of, if this is a spot that I really want to hunt for whatever the reason, whether public, private, clubland, you're not going to beat me there. If I've got to stay in the truck that night, you're not going to
yeah,
beat me there. So I'm sure I've ruffled some feathers and stuff with that too.
yeah,
But
yeah. I'll never
um,
forget. We rolled into the club one morning, and it was already like, I think it was like 3:30, and I knew where I wanted to go because I had a bird that had beat me that year, and we rolled around the corner, and you were there already.
oh,
Yeah, I was like, "Dadgummit, that Walt guy's there again." And this is probably, I don't know, 10 years ago, maybe not that long, but I just remember, like, I knew you through Trey,
hmm,
and so the respect was there, but who I was going with, they're willing to get up early, but they're not like at the point where they're willing to do
right,
it at all costs, like sleep in
right,
the truck kind
right.
of deal.
So that's
And dude, when we came around the corner, and there's a type of identification in that specific club that you have to do, and we saw that you were there.
before today. I never knew you were even in that
Yeah,
that
I
list.
don't tell anybody where I hunt or what I do. I'm
I
very,
I try not to as
yeah,
well.
and I actually got out of that club because people knew I was in it, and I had this one dude that was following around, stealing my trail cameras. I caught him on camera. The president and him were friends, so they didn't do anything about it. So I was in it 1 year, and then I was
Right.
out. And then I came as a guest turkey hunting a few years before that. I actually only got in the club to turkey hunt,
Hmm.
and but that third year, I had a bird beat me, or that second year, I had a bird beat me. The third year, I come back to hopefully kill it because I learned from my mistakes, and you were already there. And so yeah, that was a funny experience. But yeah, so let's rewind it back. We didn't finish the turkey story earlier. So you had him on the roost,
Had him, and
and he flies off the other direction. So
yep,
what happens after that?
I was beat at that point. So again, it went a full week of me, playing cat and mouse with this bird, and he would gobble really good on the limb, and then he would gobble pretty sporadically on the ground. But I knew he didn't have hens. There was, I mean, there was an occasion that a hen, might have been around, but I never saw one, never heard one. Um, so at this point, I know he's just pretty cagey. Like he's not a run down your gun barrel kind of turkey. Um, I had a feeling he was pretty old, but I was questioning that because of his lack of hens. I mean, this was not super deep into the season. This was, probably first or second week of April. So, um, thought, man, if he's a a old dominant bird, he should still be around hens at this point pretty regularly. So the final day that I ended up killing him on, I approached from a complete like different direction. I don't know if that had anything to do with it other than I felt like I could be a little bit quieter. But we'd had a rain the day before, so
Oh
it
yeah,
was
that's
it
perfect.
was yeah, it was pretty ideal for me to get, where I needed to be quietly. And I got above him. I was where he was at, he was right as a finger rolls off down into a holler, and I got directly above him. As a matter of fact, I was a little worried that I was going to be like eye level with him when it got daylight,
Yeah.
which is could be good, could be bad. There was enough foliage that it was you know
Oh yeah, because we're later in the season now.
right, which
Okay.
allows you a little room for error.
Yep.
And sure enough, it started getting daylight, and my first instinct was, oh, this is great. Here in a few minutes, I'm gonna give him a few tree yelps and blah blah. And then I thought, you idiot, you've done the same thing
Yeah.
every day. Has it worked yet?
Right.
Like, let's see what he does. Like, so sure enough, I sat there all the way till he flew down. I heard, I couldn't see him on the limb. I kept thinking I could, but I ended up seeing him, pitch across a little opening. I could see he was like 80 from me. When he hit the ground, I had to make a decision. I was like, do I immediately start yelping to this turkey or do
Right.
I just see what he does? So I thought for a minute when he hit the ground that I could hear him walking. And I was like, well, he's coming up. He's coming up, right? So I head down on the gun. I'm waiting. And then he gobbles, and I can tell he's not necessarily went down, but he's kind of went around this finger.
Yep.
So now I got to make a decision. And I said, you know what? You know, I'm going to be very quiet, and try to call, as least amount as possible. Because again, by nature, I'm pretty aggressive, but I've been aggressive with this turkey almost half a dozen times now, and it hadn't, I've walked out of there, empty shoulder every time. So
Right.
I finally give this turkey a couple of small yelps, and he didn't answer me. I was like, well, that's not good, you know. So kept myself somewhat positive, but I'm like, this is going to be the last time that I fool with this thing. I'm not wasting my entire year, hunting this one turkey. And then I didn't yelp to him again. I said, I'm gonna see what he does. And I'm just gonna just listen. Because again, he didn't gobble enough on the ground any morning for me to be like, hey, this is what he does. This is,
Right.
where he likes to go.
Yep.
Because every time I would try to do something, I think me moving and calling was kind of manipulating what he really wanted to do.
Yep.
So after that really small series of yelps, I just sat and probably 10 minutes go by. And somehow this turkey came full 360 all the way around me. I never heard him. He comes up on my right and I hear him drumming. And I was like, wow. I don't know if he liked to just circle this little finger knob. I don't know what he was doing because there was a lot of scratching up there that I started noticing after I killed the turkey. I didn't see it in the dark. But he walked up to like 30, and I shot him. And I'd only yelped to him the one time. He had made a full 360 around me before he stepped up on top. But when I stood up, and went to the turkey, that whole little ridge top right there, it was obvious that was just home.
Yeah.
He was living there. I won't say all day, but the better part of the day, he was just living there. It was, it was big oaks. It was pretty shady. By that time, it's already hot, that time of year. He had a creek bottom below him that he could drop down if he needed to get
Yep.
water or something. He was just living there.
Yeah.
And he knew, how to survive right there.
Yeah.
And every time that I was like crossing that holler or coming up, again, I don't know how much he paid attention to what was going on in the dark. Some of them you can just walk right up underneath. I don't think he was one of those. He knew where he was at was safe. He had he had a thing that he would do if he was unpressured, but if he got messed with, I think he would leave.
Yeah.
And every day that I was trying to do this and do that, I was just interrupting what he wanted to do. For whatever reason, he was not I'm going to go to a hen type turkey.
Yep.
I'm going to stand here. And he ended up being, I don't think he was a super old turkey. He had, like 1.8 spurs, pretty decent beard, but
That's
he was, um, he was a very like set in his ways. I'm going to do this. And, no matter what you try to do, it wasn't going to manipulate
yep.
where he was
Man,
at or what he wanted to do.
that's so good. That is my ideal turkey
I
hunt.
probably took more pictures of that turkey because I felt,
Yeah.
I felt, just like it was a weight lifted off of me because I can't remember if that was it might have been the bird that like finished my limit. I don't think it was though. I think it was like number 3.
Yeah.
because I was getting a little frustrated because I was like, I'm gonna mess around and
Yeah, and then you're not gonna tag
not
out.
go hunt other places that I want to hunt because this thing's driving me crazy.
Yeah, man, I think when you reach that level of turkey hunting where you have a bird like that is the peak of turkey hunting to me. Like that is when we're talking about ideal,
Hmm.
and it's not that it was a crazy amount of vocals. It's not that it was a crazy amount of really like crawling or tactics. It was just that you understood. It's the same thing I do with mature bucks. Like I am trying to learn over a period of years, usually on these deer. I start tracking them at like 3.5. So about 5.5, 6.5. I know where I'm going to kill them. Like
Hmm.
I've learned at some point, hopefully by that time, that's my goal, is that I have learned some habit that they do year after year that makes them
Vulnerable.
vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yes. And when you reach that level in deer hunting, turkey hunting, coyote hunting, I had a big coyote that he whooped my butt. I mean, I'm talking, we killed up to this point 27 coyotes on this one property in 2 months.
It's crazy.
But this one big male turkey, actually, I ended up getting in trouble for it. Had to do community service. I didn't know you couldn't kill a turkey. I mean, couldn't kill a coyote on railroad tracks. So if you're within,
News to me.
yeah. So the regs are updated now, thanks to me. So anybody watching this, if you go into the book now, it says, you got to be so much distance from a road, so much from a house or structure, and then now it says from a railroad track because it didn't say that before, and so I didn't know. And so when I got busted because I posted a video of me smoking this giant coyote, I'm pumped. You're talking about how many
Sure.
pictures you took, dude. I made a novel post about this coyote. Like I can imagine the non coyote hunters or non hunters
I mean, I
period.
don't want to incriminate myself, but I've killed quite a few turkeys off tracks.
Exactly.
Not him standing on the tracks, but just using like the right of way. They'll get out there and strut and
That's
stuff like
right.
it's crazy.
Yeah, and so I didn't know that up to that point. And culturally, I think too, it's like I've always just seen all these railroad track pictures, and it's
Hmm.
like a cool thing to
Yeah,
take your picture in the
sure.
middle of the
Old
tracks.
barn, railroad track,
Yeah,
broke
and
down car.
so, anyways, game warden calls me, and he's like, "Hey, man, just so you know, somebody reported you to Game Watch.
Oh, the
You
hater.
know,
Oh, the
we got
haters.
we got to write you up." And I'm like, "Dude, are you serious?" And I'm like, "Okay, whatever we got to do." I was like, "We'll make it a learning moment, and I'll tell everybody, like, hey, I did this, I didn't
Truly
know it."
was a like an, and I mean this in the sense of the word, it was like an ignorant thing. You know, but when you
That's
don't know, you
exactly
don't know.
right.
But it's not an excuse. But I mean,
Yeah, I said, look, if I know this is a law,
you
and
think I'm
I'm
gonna post the video?
exactly, that's exactly what I said. You think I'm
Right.
dumb enough to do
Yeah.
that? And he's like, I know you're not. And they say, I know you're not even going to do it because
Right.
I'm just one of those people. Like,
Try to stay by the books best you
yes,
can.
dude. It was just ingrained to as me as a kid, like growing up with my uncle. He's very by the book. And it's just like one of those things, like if I can't beat him at the game and the game determined by nature and the game determined by law, by man, if I can't beat him at the game, then like what am like I can't beat my chest and say I'm the best if I'm poaching or if I'm going over the line or if I'm doing all these illegal bait and stuff, like if
Prime example. Last year, opening day, I had a turkey that I knew he was close to the line, and you know, for whatever reason, couldn't get him across. I hunted this turkey 3 days, and the whole time I'm completely stupid. Don't look at the 4 subscriptions I pay however much money a month for. He was on my property the whole time, but in my mind, he was off the property. I thought a specific terrain feature was the property
yeah,
line, and really, I had about 5 acres
dang,
triangle off of that, and I purposely, trying to do the right thing, because I
yeah,
mean it's in the middle of nowhere. I could have
yep,
easily stepped across there and killed this turkey day one had I known,
yep,
but I was trying to do the right thing, and this turkey just would not break from
yep.
this. He was on like a little flat bench on the side of a hill, and I was talking to buddies, and I was like, "This joker is wearing me out, man." I was like, "He's gobbling great." I was like, "But he's beating me to that little. He's basically roosting 20 yards off the line, and he's
Yep.
flying down and going to this this bench in the woods." And I was like, I don't know what to do. I was like, I've tried everything, I know, you know, to get him off the limb and get him to come my
Right.
way. I was like, but in his mind, when he comes down off that limb, he's going over there.
Yep.
And I'm just sitting there one night, in my bed looking, it's like 10:30, and I'm looking at on X, and I'm like, you know, where does he go in the middle of the day? Because I've had a day that I was going to get to hunt throughout the day. I wasn't going to have to leave, mid morning. And I was like, where do I need to, set up shop and just, try to make a play on this turkey mid morning? And all of a sudden I look and I'm like, he's on my property. Like,
Yeah.
what are you? I woke a friend of mine up. I was like, I got to tell you this because I've got just absolute gripe right now to
Yeah.
somebody because it's my own fault. But I was like, this turkey's been on me the whole time.
Yep.
And he was like, okay, it's 10:30. Go kill him tomorrow. I'm going back to bed.
Yeah. Yeah, dude.
I,
But it's like you going back to if that's not your property. At the end of the day, you know what you do and don't do. And it's just like another level of the challenge that I love is that not only do I have to beat nature and beat that animal, I've got to beat the confines of the rules of the game. It's no different than if I'm playing basketball or
sure.
pickleball or working out in the gym. It's like I got back into the gym lately. And it's like if I'm supposed to do 3 sets of 10 and I'm only doing 8 or 9 reps,
Cheating yourself.
is anybody going to know?
No.
No. But if that's what I've set as the workout for the day,
You're cheating yourself.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so it's like you can cheat all day long and you can post your pictures, or you can talk about, this and that. But at the end of the day, like, and that's one thing that I've got to live with,
Mhm.
and it's like if I've done the right thing all the way through, and it's like, and two, it's like, dude, I can pick out somebody in a heartbeat that I know if they're a poacher or not. Like, I know, and there's a point where I think, when you're younger, there's been some guys that I know that, man, they were rebels
Oh, for sure.
when they were younger.
For sure.
And then they've aged, they've even got property themselves, and they're like, yeah, I haven't been doing the right thing all this time. And then they come into this season of life where they do the right thing. They actually learn how to hunt because they're now playing by the rules. And dude, they become some of the best hunters, period. But those guys that cheat until they die or until they don't hunt anymore, dude, the lack of fulfillment's got to be terrible, But
And I think when it comes to, if you look at what things were 20 years ago, when I was, really getting, just started, um, there wasn't near as many people hunting anything, whether you're talking about deer or whether you're talking about turkeys or whatever. Um, it's very rare now that you have, and I don't care where you're at, a contiguous piece of property larger than 20 acres. If an animal lives on it, somebody probably hunts that.
yep,
So it's like a long time ago,
legal or elite,
right?
yeah, either
A
way.
long time ago, there was massive pieces of property that nobody touched.
Yep,
Um, you could get permission pretty easily on
yep,
stuff back then. If you, especially if it was something in your community where maybe you had or even if it was a loose relationship through church or something with somebody, you could get permission on land very
yep.
easily. And nowadays, there's very few pieces of property that are larger than 20 acres that somebody doesn't hunt.
That's exactly right.
And good luck, getting permission on any small, pieces or whatever that aren't hunted, simply the fact because most of those people have either had to run somebody off their property or they've caught somebody, found a tree stand, found a camera. Too many people have left bad taste in people's mouth about it, that I think the days are getting smaller and smaller of being able to acquire permission on, you know, small to medium sized piece of
Yep,
property because, a few people have, you know, ruined it for everybody.
yep,
Again, the older generation, our grandparents, and our parents and stuff that, really didn't have much interest in hunting, but they didn't care to let somebody. It was fine. If they knew you or trusted you, they'd let you go hunt. As our generation starts to become, landowners and, homeowners and have property and things like that, they're pretty reluctant to allow anybody on their property to do anything.
yep, yeah,
Um,
yeah. In the Sue Happy world we live in too, people are so scared liability standpoint.
mhm.
I could collectively say, turkey wise, 3 years ago, I probably had 20 different places to hunt.
Mhm.
Going into this season, I might have 4,
Right.
and it's just because people come in and offer money. They know there's turkeys there. They offer a ton of money. And I'm like, dude, I'm not paying you $5,000 to turkey hunt. Sorry.
No.
And
It's insane though what and you see this topic come up on lots of forums and stuff like that, property in general, whether you're talking turkeys or deer or especially duck now and stuff, there's just no ceiling, it looks like, to what people are willing to pay to do it.
Yep.
And your average guy can't afford it. I mean, I look at it like, I will always, in some capacity, try to keep myself places to hunt. I do hunt public, both deer, turkeys, ducks, but I like to have some, especially close to home, some places that I can hunt. And unfortunately, either the size of the properties are shrinking or the cost of still a shrinking property is going up to the point that, it's like, how long is it worth it, to
right.
spend, $1,000 on, a small piece of property that I'm not going to let myself kill more than a turkey or two off of because,
Yep.
what good is it if I go in there and kill every bird on the property? What am I going to do next year or
That's
the next
exactly
year?
right.
So it's one of those things where we're going to continue to price ourselves out of private land leases
Yep.
to the point that there's going to be, very few options. And again, I don't like to beat a dead horse about public land being, crowded, but there's reasons for that.
Yep.
And the reason is it's affordable.
Yep.
It's, you can call it what you want to. I tend to have pretty decent success on public land, some pieces more than others, but it's what's affordable.
Yeah. And it's wild because I study statistics of the hunting population. We teach adults how to hunt because, like, I can train an adult today, they can go hunt tomorrow, and they can also teach everybody around them, nieces, nephews, kids, another friend to hunt. So adults can teach other adults and kids. If I teach a kid, they're not going to teach anybody for 10 years or maybe not even continue to hunt.
Right.
Because like you said earlier, I wasn't able to hunt as much because I didn't drive. So I study the hunting numbers and I'm like, okay, we're decreasing in the number of hunters statewide, nationwide. Like it's decreasing, but public land participation is
Increased dramatically.
increased dramatically, at least in Alabama,
in every state.
And so then I look at my private lands I've had and exactly what you're talking about of, people paying or it sells off or, they just have a bad experience with somebody you're sharing it with or they're somebody else and they're just not going to let anybody hunt anymore or, whatever crazy situation happens that causes us to lose it. It's amazing to see, the transition that has happened in just a few years, much less 5 or 10 years, because of technology, social media. Like we had a guy last year, he was sending screenshots and pictures in the middle of a mentored hunt. By that afternoon, we lost permission on that property, because he talked when we told him not to, so.
What's like, we've talked about this with friends and stuff before. How many 150-inch deer do you think exist around here that somebody doesn't know about? Not very many of them. There's a camera everywhere you want to go. There's very few big deer anymore in Alabama, at least, and especially I would say even more so urban type environments. That doesn't mean that it's in a city, but like, small tracks and stuff. Like, I don't see how a deer survives.
Right.
I honestly don't. I mean, they truly are, very resilient because they figure
Mm-hmm.
out how to avoid us, as much as we're trying to, get to them. But it's crazy. It's like, just like the deer that we talked about, earlier this year. Did you think that anybody else knew about that deer?
No, I didn't know about that deer until the day before I killed it. I
Right.
knew that, I don't know. Did you have the big buck I asked you about? I never got a message response.
The one that was killed the year
Yeah.
prior?
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
So I knew about that buck. I didn't really, I'm the type of person that, especially when all these smaller tracks start to bump up against each other, that's why I ask you where you hunt, because I just don't want to step on toes.
Sure.
And so I knew about this deer. I saw him one night coyote hunting. He was still in velvet. And I said, good Lord, what is that? Is that what is that? It looks like a horse, but it
Giant.
has antlers because it's velvet and you can see him at that point with the thermals. And within about 3 weeks of that, I was just in a random conversation, and so said, "Oh yeah, me and so are hunting this really big deer this year." And they don't tell anybody anything. So I felt like, man, that was a really nice, respectful honor that he would even share that with me. And he didn't know that I knew about the deer, and I didn't. I didn't tell him at that point because I was kind of having that internal battle of like, okay, I now know this deer exists, and I really want to hunt him and kill him because he's massive. It'd be the biggest deer I've ever killed, and I just was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. I was like, so I told him, I said, hey, I just want you to know where this deer lives, and I said, if any benefit to you,
Sure.
this is where he lives all the time. Like he's there every day. And if it helps you, I think this is probably how he's getting to your property through this pinch point. And I shared that. I don't know if it got relayed to the person, the other friend that actually ended up taking him, but they took that deer two seasons later.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that it was the week that I needed, if I wanted to kill him, I knew I needed to be hunting him. And I chose to go to a trade show and not
And
stay.
look what it got you.
But at the same time, I never hunted that deer.
Right.
I knew, I was like, okay, if I can pattern this deer and I can learn from it, and they end up taking it,
So be it.
I still feel like I've gained something in this, and I'm happy for my friend. And so, but you're talking about, like, so that deer, where I was going with that is you're talking about, I knew that deer would get backfilled. I was hoping it would be with another giant deer. Unfortunately, it was 100 and, it was still a stud. Don't get me wrong. I think he scored in the 120s as a 7-ish point. A week 7.
He was bigger the year before.
Yeah. Oh, was he?
Yeah.
Dang. But I knew he would probably get backfilled because this doe was mature, and usually mature does and mature bucks tend to seem to go together, And so I was like, well, I'll just put cameras all around her, and then when she comes into Etrush, something will show up. He showed up that night. I went and hunted and killed him, unfortunately.
Honestly, don't know where he lived.
Yeah, I don't know. He didn't live on the property I
He
hunted.
didn't live on our property. He would pass through from time to time.
Yeah.
But I don't know where he actually lived.
Yeah. And so, when it comes to, I had a property, kind of going back to the permission and the public land and all that conversation is, you're talking about, like, I like to have multiple pieces. Like now it's the least I've ever had for turkey. I still have a decent amount for deer, but I like to have the most possible because I don't like to kill everything on it. Like, it's the conservationist side in me. If I kill everything, I can't take people there. I can't go there. Like, my kids can't go there. And we had a property that was heaven, and it was the one I got permission on initially that Trey knew about. And had a guy come in there, literally handed the landowner cash in front of my face one day to say, hey, I'll take the rights off this from you. Puts $500 in his pocket for 10 acres, and I'm like, well, that was a jerk move. They ended up, he tagged out on that property. His friend tagged out on that property. His kids killed turkeys on that property. And then the next year he's like, hey man, you been seeing any turkeys over here? No, you killed them all. Like, there's no more turkeys over there.
I got probably one of my worst scoldings from my dad when I was, and again, my dad likes to turkey hunt. He don't go a lot, but we had a piece of property that we hunted when I was, young, teenager and whatnot. And for whatever reason, this one particular year, there'd been a great hatch, I guess, 2 years prior, because there was just a silly amount of 2-year-old gobblers on this place. Like, and, I was like 18 at the time, 19, and I was like, this is fantastic. So like, we went on like a 10 or 12 day just slaughtered. Like, I was carrying anybody. I killed 5. I was carrying anybody that wanted to go. I think we ended up killing like 9 in like 11 days.
Yep.
And I came home, like one of the last turkeys I came home, my dad said, you're not to go back over.
Yeah.
Like, you are done on that piece of property for the rest of the year. And at the time, I was
such a valuable lesson.
I was like, well, there's still some of their gobbling. He was like, son, there ain't going to be another bird to gobble over there for 5 years if you go back.
That's exactly right. I have a property, and I can't share too many details, but I have a property where the landowner limits me in what I can kill. And it's been that way since I started. And I used to get so frustrated because I'd have multiple good bucks. Like, I'm talking like back in the day, like I might have 2 to 450 plus inch deer on this property.
It's fantastic.
And I didn't know what I was doing, unfortunately. But this person the landowner would only let me kill one deer a year. And it didn't matter if I killed it, my wife killed it, my son killed it. Anybody, one deer is all we got collectively. But the lesson that I learned from that on conservation was so powerful. Just to understand, like, you can do this, but
Well, it's like
at what cost?
everybody assumes that, I have some magical place that I, kill turkeys, and I really don't. Like, believe it or not, the farm that my family owns that I hopefully one day will take over, never killed a turkey there. I've never pulled the trigger on turkey there. And we have, I won't say a lot, but we have turkeys there every spring. Um, I've never put my hands on one.
Yeah, yeah, and talking about kiss and tell, I, I don't anymore. I'm definitely gonna tighten it up a little bit more this year. But like, say where I take things,
Hmm.
there was a while I was like a little bit more flexible with that. But
Loose lips will sink ships.
dude, big time. So here's what happened. I had a guy on our team run his mouth. Somebody stops by in his yard and he just goes to yapping. Oh yeah, I know so and so that got this. Taylor got this. Taylor hunts over here. There's something crazy about when people think I have permission that there's automatically like
A giant,
150 plus inch deer in there, and like I wish.
right?
I wish every property I had permission had that kind of deer on it. I try to let them age.
Little they know it's a 3 point.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. I've got deer spots. I got so many that I try to monitor. Like I have like 50 tacticams
Right,
all spread all over the state, it feels like. And I might get one good deer a year,
right.
and then sometimes it's like this year and some other years, it's just like all of that letting these deer walk and ends up piling up
Pays
and
off.
paying off for me. But it's like I don't kill anything off of these properties for years. And so, anyways, mouth gets ran by a guy. That guy he was talking to starts hunting it. Then somebody else moves in, puts a feeder 20 yards off their driveway with the camera, starts getting pictures of this deer. I killed the deer this year, very distinct deer. So what does he do? That's his deer. He gets mad. He blocks my access.
Hmm.
I'll end up getting access another way. But it was just like, dude, the culture.
I've sunk my own ship before, like you're talking about.
Oh yeah,
I mean, we talked earlier about what I do for a living, and I talk to lots of people,
yeah,
and it showed me how quickly things can change. This was quite a few years ago. I was talking to a gentleman that was pretty unassuming. Like, it was a very casual conversation, very friendly. Like, I didn't know the guy personally, but I mean, I can talk to a fence post. So we're chatting and everything. And we started talking turkey hunting, and for whatever reason, I still don't know why, I told him, that I had killed a turkey on this piece of public, and for whatever reason, I told him the road that I was on. I didn't even think the guy was a turkey hunter. I would not. I mean, there's no way that I could have but it was a coincidence. I don't know if it was, the Lord trying to teach me a lesson or what, but like 2 weeks later, on a weekday, this was not a weekend, this was like a Thursday or something. I pull up to this gate to go hunt because I had heard another turkey in this same area where I had killed that one, and there's a truck there. And, I'm not one to, I don't want anybody coming in on me.
yep,
So I'm not going to go in on somebody else.
yep,
So, I stop and I turn around and I'm facing the other way, and I've got my phone up and I'm trying to decide, what's plan B. And I hear like a peck on my window, and it's the guy that I had talked to like 2 weeks before. And he was like, "Man, I thought that was you." And he didn't think anything about it. He didn't think he was doing anything wrong. Like, and I didn't press the issue or scold him. I told him to have a good day, good luck, that kind of thing. Um, but right then I learned, keep your mouth shut.
yep.
Like, I mean, it's one thing to talk amongst a close group of friends, which,
That's right.
I do during turkey season. It's like, you can guarantee sometime between 9 and 11, there's going to be about 4 or 5 phone calls between, friends, and we're going to, discuss how we got our butts kicked all morning, or who killed or whatever.
Yep,
But, you know, with the way money is now and the way technology is, even sharing a picture with somebody, I've seen it to where you can figure out where that's at really easily.
Really quick.
Really easy.
Really quick. Yep.
You know,
Yeah,
things you would never think.
that's exactly right. And I, yeah, just like so that guy's he's blocked my access. You know, I can't get back. Like my cameras are out there on trees right now, just sending me pictures every day because I have solar panels on them, and so they haven't died. And I'm just like, well, I've just got to go get access eventually. And there's turkeys on it, so I'll probably
You don't you need to
head back
you need to
there.
get on that pretty quick.
Yeah, I'll probably get permission in the next couple of days. But yeah, it's just like it's just so annoying. And so it's like I told you, like, hey man, you know where this deer was? Don't say anything because I'm at the point where I won't even let landowners know anymore. And it like
Oh, my grandmother, my own flesh and blood.
yes,
You know, we
same. I have a family member the same way.
our family farm. It's not big, and but I do a lot of work, and I put a lot of effort into planting. You know, I had to do a bunch of standing corn, beans. Like it's really. I'm proud of how it looks. Like it's a beautiful place.
Yep.
And yeah, some years I'm fortunate to kill a good deer on it. Some not. And again, I don't even turkey hunt on it, but I learned really quick. You know, I thought it was cool to show my grandmother these pictures of these big deer. You know, like, hey, look, there's a bachelor
Yep.
group. You know, look at these two giants, and
Yep.
these are granny. These are like 5-year-old deer. You know,
Yep.
this is them last year, and she's oh that's awesome and everything, and but yet. I learned really quick. I would send her sometimes. Like I had some pictures I sent to her cell phone. Hey, Granny, he was there last night. Hopefully I can,
Yep.
hopefully I can climb a tree this weekend. Oh, well, she's sending those pictures to all her, the little group of neighbors that,
Yep.
all talk to each other. And I'm like, don't do that. I
Yeah.
was like, there's too many people that will see pictures and be like, oh,
Yep.
because I don't really have good bedding cover on our farm. So like all these deer are traveling from somewhere else to get here.
Yeah.
And I was like, they will get shot, Granny. Like that,
Yep.
you gotta be quiet about what I show you, like, because
Yeah.
I won't hurt. I mean, it's obviously she owns the farm, so like I like to share with her like what's going on and like what's living there. But we uh we have a fun time with it. But I don't even show family pictures much anymore.
Yeah. I have a very similar situation, and I've begged them not to, and they're going to. So it's either I don't tell them and I keep it to myself, or I let them enjoy it and just know the repercussions of that.
Right.
But yeah, we have a property that's not very big. I've hunting land all over it. Like I've gotten just piece after piece,
Mhm.
and the amount of people who are now hunting
Oh yeah,
backyards and edges of that because
because what lives there?
they know. And yeah, that's where I learned I will not, unless they see that they catch me and there's blood running down the tailgate,
You're not gonna know where that deer came from.
never, not
Same,
anymore.
same way with the turkey, man.
Yep.
The you know I don't know that you could ever really hurt the deer population in this state.
Right.
Um,
The mature deer, you could.
Absolutely, but as far as just numbers of deer, like
That's
we
right.
got tons of deer. That turkey population is much more fragile.
Much more fragile. Like the property we're talking about, I have not seen but one tom on it since that season consistently.
My thing is, I don't have an answer as to what needs to be done because I've got, like, for instance, my family farm. I've never killed a turkey off of it, and I can watch year to year turkey numbers fluctuate drastically. And to my knowledge, in the surrounding area, I know most of the neighbors and stuff like that. Like nobody turkey hunts. Nobody's killed a turkey.
Yep.
Like it's not like they're walking 50 acres over there and getting shot. It's
Yep.
not the case. So I'm like, is it a predator thing? So I've caught so many raccoons that, I mean, it's rare that I even get a raccoon on camera anymore.
Yeah.
I went on a tear a few years ago.
Yeah.
So it's like, what's happening to these turkeys? And I don't honestly have an answer, but I don't necessarily think it's hunters because I see it in properties that don't get hunted, that turkey numbers still fluctuate drastically. There's a property that Trey and I have hunted since we were young that, yes, we did kill, quite a few turkeys off of it, but relative to how many turkeys were there years ago, um, not that many. We
Yeah.
might kill 2 or 3 off this property and, herd 10 at the beginning of the season.
Right.
And and very obvious that like the numbers are just not there anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't, even the numbers of like hens and stuff like that, it's just not there. And the property itself has not changed as far as habitat. There's been no major, cuts or, anything. And I'm a little bit at a loss as to why the population fluctuates up and down as much as it does, and trending more down of
Yeah.
the last few years for a lot of places. Um, but I look at it like too, when I was really young, before I could really go on my own and turkey hunt and stuff, there were areas not far from here that there were no turkeys.
Yep.
Like there was not a turkey anywhere to be found in this part of, the world.
Same for deer in some of the places I
Yeah.
remember
And
growing
now
up.
and now there are.
Yep.
So it's like what was good about that property that turkeys moved into it,
That's right.
and because there wasn't any, but now are again on the decline.
Yep.
And
Yeah. If someone has the answer, they're watching this, comment, because I will put turkeys on properties legally, whatever
Sure.
that looks like through NWTF or Turkeys for Tomorrow or the state. I'll put turkeys out there for you. I'll do the habitat work that I can legally do. Like,
I,
please
I,
just give
I
me the answer.
I don't know. And again, it seems dumb, but like some hens are just dumb when it comes to where they nest. I've seen that personally.
Bro.
Like I don't know.
Yeah.
You'd think the evolution of turkeys would have been like only the smart ones survive, but like it's obviously not the case, because I've walked across nests that are like, bro, what were you doing? Like
Yeah.
what? Like
Yeah.
did you put any thought into this?
Dude,
Like
I
it's just
about jumped out of my skin one day. I'm walking a logging road and a hen goes bolting, like I'm talking like my foot almost steps on
Mhm.
her on this logging road. And just like the hump of the where the tires of the
And she had
vehicle,
nested right there.
there's a nest right there. No cover, no nothing, just wide
There's
open.
a hen nested in a pasture of ours, like right next to the pond. Like this is not it's a pretty trafficked area.
Yeah.
And I went down there one day, and I try not to bush hog, during the
Yep.
like when I would think it would be nesting season,
Right.
like in, from the end of April through about July.
Yep.
But I was going to bush hog around the pond because we keep it cut around that pond and stuff. And she's just, in the grass.
Yep.
There was 10 eggs, in a nest. And I was like, and I literally drove right over it with the bush hog.
Yep.
And I was like, well, I've doomed that nest, I mean, but I looked at it like, well, you were dumb anyway. Like,
Yeah.
why, it's like if we could somehow teach turkeys how to nest in a tree, we could solve the world's,
Yeah, that's exactly
problems.
right. Yeah, man. Well, just incredible time here with you. Just
Absolutely.
so much information. We'll probably have you back on because that was just. I don't feel like we've pulled everything out of. What is it? Uh, 30 or 25 years of turkey hunting.
Something like
I
that. Yeah.
mean, yeah, it's a lot. So, man,
You got plans on going anywhere turkey hunting? I know you take quite a few deer trips. You take any turkey trips?
no, I usually don't. No, it's just it's
telling you
kind of
right-
my season to stay at home. But I've gotten my Grand Slam. I got that like a few years ago. Almost did it in a single season. Did a single season slam, and it's kind of like I checked that box, and then it's like if I'm going to spend time away from my wife and kids, it's going to be for deer.
Right.
And I'm not opposed to it though.
Well, the thing about it is, it would be really rough if all these guys that stay in the South and hunting like down here, it's just different. Like,
Yeah.
there's no doubt we do have the hardest headed turkeys in the country.
Yes, dude. Yeah, hunting
If
out
you
of state
if
was
you can
like
kill turkeys, Mississippi, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, you can kill turkeys here. I hate to be this way, but like you can kill them
it
anywhere.
is so true. Yeah, when I did my Grand Slam, it was like, wow, oh, this was public land, and that was really easy. Yeah,
It
was
is.
it was fun.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, the gobble to the gun, it was like, man, we probably heard no doubt in one spot 1,000 gobbles
Oh, yeah.
before
I mean,
before 8 a.m.
we've sat under, like 10 goblin turkeys, on the roofs before.
Yes.
Like turkeys act like what people think turkeys are supposed to act like,
Yeah.
once you go across the Mississippi River.
Yeah, that's so true. And well, man, I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Why don't you pray us out?
Absolutely, man. Guys, thank you for bringing us here today. Dear Heavenly Father, I just want to say thank you for Taylor and thank you for his whole team and what they're trying to do in the community, Lord. They're doing everybody a great service and reaching out to the hunting community, which Father, I want to pray over the business he's started, and all aspects of what they're trying to do. Also want to pray over this hunting season, keeping everybody safe as we travel. Whether it's close or far, keep your hand on us, keep us safe. And Lord, just keep it in our hearts and in our heads that you're the only true reason we are able to do the things we love to do, and be able to chase these birds and deer, all over the place. That without your hand, without your blessing, none of that's possible. And thank you for everything you do for us, Lord, again. In your beautiful name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Well, guys, thanks for watching. I appreciate everybody tuning in, guys and gals, and just really appreciate the support. And just want to remind you that God can revive your life through the outdoors so you can make both a positive and an eternal impact through conservation right where you are at. We'll see you on the next one.